Consciousness is life's greatest enigma. Is it merely an activity of trillions of brain cells firing, or a reflection of a deeper reality? Beyond awareness and wakefulness, consciousness constructs ourselves, our thinking, and our perception of reality. For all our technological achievement, splitting atoms, walking on the moon, reading DNA, we can't yet speak to how brain activity and matter generate subjective experience. Philosophers and scientists have debated about it for centuries, but nobody can answer with any confidence. Some say consciousness is a property of the universe, and others say it is a brain creation. Neuroscience can accurately map brain activity, but consciousness cannot be captured. How is matter generating experience? And why is consciousness even present? This enigma, termed the hard problem of consciousness, penetrates investigation in all fields, including quantum physics and neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and even metaphysics and epistemology. Can machines ever become conscious? How does knowing consciousness reframe reality? As we try to penetrate innermost regions of mind and reality, investigation continues. For all its everyday application, consciousness is an elusive notion. To unpack it, let's look at three principal perspectives. Neuroscientific perspective. Consciousness is a product of the brain's neural activity. Neurons fire, synapses connect, and electrical impulses send messages to create thought and awareness. Scientists have mapped brain regions responsible for perception, memory, and attention. But how these physical processes create subjective experience is not known. Psychological perspective. Consciousness is linked to mental processes including thoughts, emotions, and perception. Psychologists examine waking awareness, unconscious determinants of behavior, and altered states like dreaming. The process of subjective experience is yet to be discovered. Philosophical view. Philosophers have argued for centuries about the nature and role of consciousness. René Descartes' famous dictum, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am, highlights the link between consciousness and self-awareness. Yet there is no general answer to the question of why consciousness exists or how it operates. There is much that each approach has to offer, but the fundamental mystery remains. How does matter result in experience? The question continues to perplex neuroscience, psychology, and philosophy. The mystery of consciousness is one of the deepest puzzles of human life. At the crux of it is the problem of subjective experience, known as qualia, the raw, subjective sensations we feel. Think about the flavor of chocolate. It's one thing to describe its sweetness, but the actual sensation is completely personal. No one else can directly experience our qualia, so it cannot be measured or compared. This proves baffling to philosophers and scientists alike as they grapple with how subjective experience arises from physical processes. Another interesting characteristic is self-awareness, or the inner voice, the incessant flow of internal thoughts and musings inside our minds. Through this internal voice, we can reflect on our thoughts and contemplate our next move. Self-awareness, unlike basic awareness of the world, leads to a strong sense of identity. Philosophers argue that this inner experience is at the core of consciousness, distinguishing our internal world from the external one. And after centuries of exploration, the core mystery remains. How do neurons generate thoughts, emotions, and sensations? The nature of consciousness is more than just a philosophical question. It informs fields like neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and even our perception of reality itself. But if defining it is so elusive, why does understanding it matter? That's the next big question. The hard problem of consciousness, coined by philosopher David Chalmers in the 1990s, is one of the biggest mysteries in science and philosophy. The big question? How and why do physical processes in the brain create subjective experience? We can map out how the brain processes information, but that doesn't explain why it actually feels like something to be conscious. Before jumping into the hard stuff, let's talk about what scientists can explain, what Chalmers calls the easy problems of consciousness. These include things like how we recognize faces, process sounds, form memories, and focus attention. Neuroscience has made a lot of progress in understanding these processes using brain scans and experiments. For example, when you see a bright red apple, scientists can tell you exactly which parts of your brain light up in response. That's great, but it doesn't explain why seeing red actually feels like something. That's where the hard problem comes in. Let's break it down with a couple of examples. Why does seeing red feel like red? Imagine looking at a red apple. Your brain processes the color, identifies the object, and helps you recognize that it's an apple. Science can track all of that. But what it can't explain is why seeing red actually has a distinct experience, why it feels like something. We can measure wavelengths of light, but we can't measure the experience of red. This is what philosophers call qualia, the personal, private sensations we all have but can't fully describe. Do machines or animals have inner experiences? Now think about artificial intelligence or robots. They can process information, respond to their environment, and even mimic human behavior. But do they actually feel anything? Is there an inner world inside a robot? Probably not. But what about animals? They respond to pain, joy, and fear. So do they have rich inner experiences like we do? Or are they just running on instinct? These questions get right to the heart of the hard problem. Even if we could map every neuron in the brain and predict thoughts or behaviors, it still wouldn't tell us why those brain processes produce actual lived experience. Some theories suggest it has to do with quantum mechanics or the sheer complexity of neural networks, but none of that really answers the question. Why does any of this feel like something instead of nothing? And until we crack that mystery, the hard problem of consciousness remains just that. The mystery of consciousness is one of the deepest puzzles in science. While the hard problem, why and how subjective experience arises, remains unsolved, researchers have made great progress in understanding the neural and physical processes behind it. Let's dive into the neuroscience of consciousness, quantum theories, and the limits of scientific understanding. Neuroscientists have spent years trying to pinpoint the exact brain processes involved in consciousness. A major focus is the search for neural correlates of consciousness, NCC, the specific brain activity linked to conscious experience. Studies suggest that areas like the prefrontal cortex play a big role in self-awareness, decision-making, and attention. But even though scientists can identify brain regions involved in conscious thought, they still can't explain why consciousness exists at all. Some fascinating experiments have shed light on this. Take split brain studies, where patients had their corpus callosum severed to treat epilepsy. This separation of brain hemispheres led to surprising discoveries, like how one hemisphere could see something without the person being able to verbalize it, showing that consciousness isn't as unified as once thought. Then there are techniques like EEG and fMRI. EEG tracks electrical activity in the brain, helping researchers study different brainwave patterns linked to wakefulness, sleep, and dreaming. Meanwhile, fMRI scans show which parts of the brain light up during certain tasks. These tools give an incredible look at brain activity, but still don't explain why neural activity translates into personal subjective experience. Some scientists suggest that consciousness might be linked to quantum mechanics. One of the most well-known ideas is the orchestrated objective reduction, OR theory, proposed by Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff. They argue that consciousness arises from quantum processes occurring in tiny structures called microtubules inside brain cells. The idea is that quantum states collapse in a way that creates conscious awareness. While intriguing, this theory remains controversial, as quantum processes in the brain are not yet well understood. Despite all these advances, there's a fundamental challenge. Science can study brain processes, but it can't directly access subjective experience. This issue, known as the explanatory gap, suggests that even if we map every neuron involved in consciousness, we still won't understand why we feel emotions, pain, or self-awareness. Some argue that consciousness might only be understandable from within, rather than through external observation. Science has made incredible progress in unraveling how the brain works. But the deeper question, why we are conscious at all, remains a mystery. Up next, we'll explore some philosophical debates on self-awareness, machine consciousness, and what it truly means to be conscious. Consciousness remains an enigma, and philosophy offers diverse perspectives on its nature. Three major theories, dualism versus materialism, panpsychism, and simulated reality, present competing explanations. Dualism versus materialism. Dualism Descartes argues that the mind and body are separate. with consciousness existing beyond physical matter. However, it struggles to explain how a non-physical mind interacts with the physical brain. Materialism, physicalism, claims that consciousness arises solely from brain activity. Neuroscience supports this, but materialism fails to explain why subjective experience emerges from physical processes, the hard problem of consciousness. Panpsychism. Is consciousness universal? This radical view suggests that consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe, present in all matter, from atoms to humans. It avoids the issue of consciousness emerging from non-conscious material, but struggles to explain the vast differences in awareness between a rock and a human mind. Simulated reality. Are we in a program? Proposed by Nick Bostrom, this theory suggests consciousness might be part of an advanced simulation. If true, our understanding of consciousness would be inherently limited. However, it lacks evidence and merely shifts the mystery to why consciousness exists in a simulated world. Each theory provides insights, but none fully explain consciousness, one of the greatest unresolved questions in science and philosophy. The question of animal consciousness challenges the long-held belief that humans are uniquely aware. Research suggests many animals exhibit self-awareness and subjective experience. The mirror test, developed by Gordon Gallup, measures self-recognition, with great apes, dolphins, and elephants passing it. However, its reliability is debated, as some animals may express consciousness differently. Evidence shows animals feel emotions, understand cause and effect, and may possess a sense of self. But to what extent is their awareness like ours? Do they experience consciousness, or are they simply driven by instinct? The mystery remains. As AI rapidly advances, the question arises, can machines ever be truly conscious? While AI performs complex tasks like image recognition and language processing, it lacks subjective experience. It processes data but does not feel. Some theorists speculate that AI could develop consciousness, but no one knows how. Consciousness involves a subjective inner life, something machines currently lack. Philosophers like David Chalmers suggest it may be possible, yet the mystery remains unsolved. If AI ever becomes self-aware, it would raise profound ethical and existential questions about machine rights and the nature of human consciousness. Consciousness is full of mysteries, and few are as intriguing as out-of-body experiences, OBEs, and near-death experiences, NDEs. People who go through them often describe floating outside their bodies, watching themselves from above, or even moving toward a bright light and encountering deceased loved ones. Some say they feel an overwhelming sense of peace or connection to something greater. But what's really happening here? Science tends to explain these experiences as neurological responses, the brain under extreme stress, low oxygen levels, or chemical imbalances, creating vivid hallucinations. That makes sense, but then there are cases where people recall specific details of events happening around them, things they shouldn't have been able to perceive. That's where the real debate begins. Could it mean that consciousness exists separately from the brain? Or is this just the mind's way of coping with trauma? Whatever the answer, understanding consciousness could change everything. It could reshape ideas about identity, free will, mental health, and even artificial intelligence. Could machines ever be truly aware? Does free will really exist? These questions keep pushing the boundaries of science and philosophy. Maybe one day there will be answers, or maybe consciousness will always be the greatest mystery of all. Understanding consciousness could change everything about how we see identity and free will. What truly makes a person them? Right now, identity feels tied to unique experiences, emotions, and choices. But if consciousness turns out to be just a complex set of neural processes or mathematical algorithms, does that change how we define the self? Would we still see ourselves as individuals or just highly sophisticated biological machines running pre-programmed responses? This also raises tough questions about free will. If our thoughts and decisions are simply the result of brain chemistry and external influences, are we really in control of our actions? Or are we just reacting to a chain of cause and effect? If everything is predetermined by physical laws, that could reshape ideas about personal responsibility, ethics, and justice. Would society need to rethink how it approaches punishment and rehabilitation? Could understanding consciousness lead to a more compassionate view of human behavior, recognizing that people's choices are shaped by complex, interwoven processes? Beyond philosophy, this understanding has real-world applications. It could revolutionize mental health treatment, allowing deeper insight into disorders like depression or schizophrenia. It could push artificial intelligence closer to human-like awareness. It could even influence education, law, and social systems. If we ever fully unlock the nature of consciousness, it might not just change what we know, it could redefine how we live. A deeper understanding of consciousness could transform mental health, artificial intelligence, and society as a whole. In mental health, conditions like depression, anxiety, schizophrenia, and PTSD often involve disruptions in perception, self-awareness, and emotional regulation. If we uncover how conscious experiences arise, it could lead to better treatments, targeted therapies, and even preventative measures. Advances in neuroscience could improve trauma recovery, addiction treatment, and emotional well-being, ultimately enhancing overall quality of life. In AI, identifying the mechanisms behind consciousness could pave the way for artificial self-awareness. If AI becomes conscious, would it have rights, emotions, or desires? Could it experience suffering or joy? The ethical challenges would be immense, requiring careful consideration of AI's role in society. On a societal level, consciousness research could reshape education, empathy, and communication. Understanding how minds work could lead to more effective teaching methods, stronger human connections, and enhanced emotional intelligence. As AI advances, new laws and ethical standards may be needed for a world where machines could potentially think and feel. Unraveling consciousness isn't just about science. It could redefine how we understand ourselves, technology, and the future of humanity. While we are still far from fully understanding consciousness, the journey toward that understanding holds enormous potential. If we can unlock the secrets of the mind, the practical applications could revolutionize fields ranging from medicine to technology to philosophy. And with this new knowledge, we could approach age-old questions about identity, morality, and the nature of reality from an entirely new perspective. But as we are pushing the edges in neuroscience, artificial intelligence, and philosophy, it is now evident. Understanding consciousness goes beyond the reaches of a mere scientific venture into redefining what makes us human. As we wrap up this exploration of consciousness, one thing is clear. It remains one of the greatest mysteries of science and philosophy. We've examined what consciousness is, the hard problem of how subjective experience arises, and the different perspectives, from neuroscience to AI to simulated realities. We've considered the implications for free will, identity, ethics, and the future of artificial intelligence. And yet, despite all these insights, consciousness remains elusive. Maybe it's not a question meant to be fully answered, but one that invites endless curiosity and debate. It reflects the complexity of the human mind and the mystery of the universe itself. So, what do you think? Is consciousness purely biological, or is there something more beyond the physical? Share your thoughts below. I'd love to hear your perspective. If you enjoyed this discussion, like and subscribe for more deep dives into the biggest questions of existence. Want to explore topics like AI, the philosophy of mind, or life after death? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and keep exploring the mysteries of the universe.